get warm. It's getting windy. Warm thermals. Thermals and warmth. Well, hopefully the wind isn't too loud. Some grouse beating, drumming all around me. One is real close. Probably gonna stop now that I'm making noise. Where am I right now? I'm above Lillooet Lake, close to the top of it, and I am basically in a pass where there is so many sightings of these things going this way, right where I'm sitting, straight in line. It's ridiculous. And it's year-round. I was talking to a guy, First Nations guy, who works for the community here, and he was telling me, I was wondering if they were here, if there's full-time sightings around the community here or not. He says, yep, it's all year. All year. Same guy that told me about them being down by the river, grabbing all the spawned out rotten salmon off the riverbank. And he'd seen them like 3 different times, right? That'll be a grouse. So what am I doing now? I just went up the Duffy Highway up to the lake to see what's going on. See if the grizzly bears have been coming down out of their hibernation holes, out of the slides. And sure enough, you could see a trackway in the slide across the lake. So I sent the camera over there and videotaped it. I'll put that videotape up on the How to Hunt channel. I won't know if I actually caught a grizzly bear laying in the sun in that slide or not until I get back. It's too small on the screen to see, right? I actually don't like filming in the sun. It kind of sucks. Everything's too bright and there's shadows usually, and it's a bit of a pain in the butt. But anyways, even like now, it's really hard to see the screen of my phone. But here we go. Listen to this one. We finally got another one from a locomotive engineer, which I was asking for earlier, remember? Love hearing from those guys. Locomotive engineer wants to share what he and his co-workers have seen. Well, this is the right place, man. Let her rip. Hello, Steve. I want to thank you for a place where we can all share our strangeness. I'm 63, retired from the railroad in 2014 after working there for 36 years. 1.6 million miles. Oh my God, dude. That is a pile of traveling, and how many sites is that? Crazy. If you work with wood, you get a sliver in your hand every now and again. If you work with electricity, you get a shock every now and again. When you drive trains, you kill things, lots of things. Herds of antelope on the prairies in the winter, moose and elk in the provincial parks, deer, hundreds of them, and Mr. Macaroni's brother too. Birds of prey, and of course humans. We work at all hours of the day. We watch the farmers rotate their crops, and the children grow up at their school bus stops. When all the weather, storms, snow drifts the size of your house are the best. Rocks the size of a 20-foot container cause you to pucker up the ass muscle. The strangeness occurred at age 7. My little brother and I watching cartoons Saturday morning. I stood up in the living room and said, TV, shut off. And it did. What the hell? Dad had to push the red reset button on the back of the set to get it to work again. Grade 3. The teacher asked the class, why are you here? I said, we are here for an experiment. Why would I say that? Mom and Dad split the sheets. I worked on the local farms, dairy, boarding of horses, cut pulp wood, maple syrup, then to Ontario into the tobacco fields 3 years in a row. Left Quebec with the other 500,000 English-speaking people in 1977, got on the railroad in May 1978. I saw my first set of footprints in the snow west of Burnt Timber, west of Cremona in 1982. It was like the basketball player Wilt Chamberlain was running through the snow. In 1984, I'm at the north rim of the Grand Canyon. We leave the location, drive about 20 miles north and into the woods, to the right, and onto a dirt road. We stop at a fire ring and set up camp. We eat a can of beans, drink beer, and there's something out there walking around us. Hours go by, it's now dark, alone, the 3 of us. We decide to rush this thing. I open my Swiss Army knife, click open the 3-inch blade, and we yell, charge! We run it 70 yards, nothing. We go back to our fire, and it walks around us. What the hell is it? I set up a tripwire with the beer cans and fishing line around the tents, and I say, if thing's gonna kill me, it can kill me in my sleep. We wake up in the morning, clean camp, and leave. I think we know what it was now. I'd like to share with you what my fellow railroaders have told me. I'll leave out the UFO stuff as there's lots of sightings. We were up all night over the country. Here it goes. One guy was at Crypt Lake, south of Waterton Park, sleeping in a pup tent with his wife, when something leaned up against his wife through the tent. He yelled at it and it left. Ken was hunting a cut line in Nordegg. He came across a haystack standing in the middle of the cut line. He heard in his mind, "Take the bullets out of your gun, turn around and leave, and don't come back," which he did. Okay, that's frickin' crazy. Scott was south of the Canal Flats, past the hot springs at White Swan Lake. There's piles of sightings there. He is in his boat fishing and rocks are tossed at him. Clinton was at Nuka Sound, up from Tofino with a native guide fishing. Rocks are tossed off the cliffs. Clinton said, "What is that all about?" The guide said, "Sasquatch is not like us fishing here." Gordon was north of Whitecourt on horse. He went in so far and left his horse and walked. Deep in the forest was this scream, so strange he did not know what it was, so loud. He put his back to a tree. The noise behind him, he said, all the wildlife was running past him to get away from the scream. He, too, left behind the animals. The next story is bad, Steve. There was 5 railroaders on 6 horses. These men hunt all the time, years of experience. They're south of Crow's Nest Pass, high in the mountains, 1984 perhaps. Old coal mine roads, take you up by the top of the world. They set up their canvas tent, stove, kitchen, hobble the pack horse, and go hunting for the day. Dusk, and they return. The camp is destroyed, stoves smashed, pots flat, beds ripped up, and the pack horse was in little pieces, blood everywhere. What does that? After listening to your reports, I think we know. That would be an absolute nightmare of a scene to experience that one. Randy and his family are on the horses in the Cypress Hills. Wife and 2 boys. They head into a box canyon on a trail. Randy noticed a chair impression in the hill behind a bush. Then the trail is crossed with downed trees in a weird pattern. He is hit on his hand by a pine cone sideways. His horse is acting up. He asked the others how their horses are doing. They said that something is bugging them. I've seen footprints here twice in tree structures. Now back to my shit. In west of Bergen, Alberta, a friend has a quarter section on the edge of the forestry. 1996, 22:30 at night. I go out of my car to get my shaving kit, and this thing growls at me. So loud, so deep, so long. A full 12 seconds. Lungs the size of 45-gallon drums. The hair on my body stands up. What the hell is that? The dog, Ernie, a great white Pyrenees, was right by my side, and he was shaking. The horses in the paddock still, only their ears moving. Silence. Evil silence. I go into the house, get a gun and a flashlight. Back outside, nothing. The sound of this thing was so huge it shook me. If you can imagine the biggest bass speaker playing, like that. We're up at 4:30. We have a job in Calgary, welding. I go out to my car and this thing growls at me again, Steve. Just like the last time, 12 seconds long, deep, loud, close, and I can't see it. We leave. Buddy's wife goes out onto the porch to get a loaf of bread at 7:30 in the morning, and it growls at her too. She keeps the kid in the house for the day. Ernie the dog, he won't go outside. The next day we walk circles around the house and find nothing. At this point in my life, I know nothing about this stuff, but have found Carlos Castaneda, Robert A. Monroe, Journeys Out of the Body, and, of course, Chariots of the Gods in 2008. I find the BFRO, attend 3 expeditions in BC. I pay the price. I show up. Here I meet like-minded people. They share with me their experiences. I know nothing, but I'm at Sasquatch Provincial Park, and everything is about to change for me. That summer opened up the world of I know nothing. I got to see John Green at his house. He had Grover Kranz's collection, Gigantopithecus skull, cast from all over the place. But that weekend, I saw one. And I shit you not. South of Sasquatch Provincial Park is a high-power transmission line and a natural gas line. They run east to west. To the east is Ruby Creek. 1930s or so is thereabouts as a Sasquatch picked up a keg of salted salmon in front of women and her kids, as the story goes. Well, I'm sitting with 2 others on a knoll looking across the clear cut under the power lines, and I decide to go off by myself to the south edge of the clear cut under a pine tree. Sun on my face, I hear footfalls, huge, crashing, crushing steps down the mountain. Then they stop. I hear wood knocks, 4, then a pause, then 2. They sounded like the shafts of 2 hockey sticks hitting each other. I'm looking around, and I see this face looking at me. It galvanized steel blue. Its eyes are like 2 charcoal briquettes wide, and its nose is a 9 and a 45-degree angle, and is the size of a 5-gallon pail. No fear. I give it Ron Moorhead's samurai chatter, no reaction. I get my camera, power it up, and it will not focus on this thing. It looked at the first tree, the third tree, and the second tree. What the F? I stop the camera and look, and this thing is gone. Fear ignites. The hair stands up. I stuff my gear in my pack, and I run through the blackberry bushes, ripping hide off of me. I don't care. I rejoin the 2 others. The next day, we go back to this spot, 6 of us. I sit in my spot, and a fellow goes to where I see this thing. He moves about. I say, over some more. Move over more. Then he takes his hat off and holds it out and said, "Is this where you saw it?" I said, "Yes." "Well, it's 14 feet down from here." No footprints were found. High up on the hill, I did find 3 spots where these things lay all day like a couch watching the beaver ponds below. My next event was with Mr. Kennedy. Found more information from 30 others. Saw strangeness in the night, lights. Heard white noise from a tree. Stones tossed into camp that rolled up to the fire ring. Robert saw his 5th Bigfoot that night with a group of 3 others in a car. The next event, same year, 2008, west of Campbell River. A raven said hello to me. I shit you not. Hello. My interest is engaged. Puzzle pieces are coming together. I group up with an Albertan team. We go out and encounter different strangeness. Things that say, "Hey!" 3 different years, the same words, same place. Then one guy gets a picture of footprints in the snow. He tells no one. I'm looking around camp and see 7 trees bent over at 90 degrees. This is weird. They're the size of baseball bats and bent, not broken. We gather in the evening to head out 9 into the forest and see this tree beside the road. It's bent over too. I look, and on the back of the side of the tree, the grass is worn flat to the dirt. Whatever's been standing there has been there for a long time. A blind. I point this out to the team leader. He said, "Stay here, I'll get the others." I share what I found. He then said, I never told anybody where took the picture of the footprints, but they came from this tree. So this thing was watching the campground all summer or all year. We are its TV. We are the fishbowl. We use the spot for 5 years and things heat up. Growls, orbs, slaps on the outhouse, stones tossed, footprints. Then 3 guys walk into camp. Black boots, Canadian flag in green on their hats, and 5'10", each in their 50s. They say they're a film crew. Scouts, location hunting. Later that night, a guard walks into camp and said, "I'm here to count how many people are here." This never happened 4 years prior. Around 0030, a black helicopter shows up over camp. No lights, hovers there for a full 60 seconds. What the hell? Our events ended, and our group closed up shop. Well, that's kind of odd. We found 4 close friends. We went north to Tofino by boat, 35 miles, to a place called Clayoquot Wilderness Resort on the edge of Strathcona Park. There's an old gold mine. Well, the tree signs, it was like reading a newspaper. We walked out on our first day, and a wood knock off the road behind the bridge. Next night, we go tie our food from the bridge. Wood knock. The next 2 go hang their food. Wood knock. This is a guard for the bridge. The local saw a female and child eating from low tide. The husband was leading paying customers on horseback. The horse stopped. The heel into the side, still no go. Nostrils wide open and the horse exhaling with force. He said, "There's something wrong. We won't go this way." "Steve, there are lots of bears at this spot, and the horse knows bears." You know what? Horses don't give a shit about bears. Trust me. I've been 10 feet from grizzly bears with my horse, and the horse doesn't really give a crap. I think we know what was there. Now we see through entities. You read an encounter on your channel where a fellow saw cloaked entities chasing bull elk on the other side of a valley. David Plitus, his boom hunted. Jan Maccabee David Plitus, his boom, must be his movie Hunt the Hunted. Jan Maccabee, she saw one go from tree to tree. I was in Idaho on my way to St. Regis, Montana. Across a creek in a swamp, this see-through heat on a road thing was following us. It was like a small sail in a small boat. 2 points leading to a single point trailing. What the hell are you? I see this thing for 300 yards. The next day I see it again at the back of the clear cut, 300 yards back. 2 years go by. I'm at Red Rock Coulee, south of 7 Parsons, Alberta. We have a drone up. In the screen I see this see-through image. I look into the coulee bottom and I see it. Our friends are walking around the large round boulders and there is this thing is close to them. They said they heard a crackling noise like aluminum foil or electric discharge. Then it forms the shape of a large teardrop and goes straight up into the sky. We land the drone in the box of the pickup truck. I look to the south. And on the other side of the barbed wire fence is this see-through shimmer thing. Steve, it's 20 feet away from me, 3 feet off the ground, 3 feet tall, 5 feet long, and it's right there. Heat on the road, looking. No fear. I said, "What are you?" It floats away to the west. Crazy, eh? Well, it's not over. The sun is set. I have a friend beside me, Bridget. I shine my laser pointed into the coulee. Great distance, these things. As I run the spot of light across the hill 200 yards away, a light comes on the side of the hill. If you turned on the back light on the fender of your tractor, it was just like that. What the hell was that? I asked Bridget. What do you see? I saw a light come on. I passed the laser pointer back and forth, but nothing. This is very long. Time to end. Shadow beings, saw one. Stuff in the sky ongoing. I want to thank those who have shared as it helps with my puzzle. In the search for truth, Brian Kenworthy, locomotive engineer, retired. Holy shit. Brian, that was quite the handful of experiences. I can only imagine possibly how many different puzzles you actually have on the go. And how many puzzles shy of completing you might be on one of them. Wow. That is a pile of stuff, man. But it goes to show, the more you intently look into these things, the more seems to happen to you, right? I think that's probably why I don't look into it intentionally. Like I put myself solo nonstop where all the shit goes on all the time, but I'm not looking. I'm not even curious. I'm not real. I can't say I'm that curious, to be honest. I'm more about hearing everybody speak openly in a safe place and be treated with respect. Obviously, that's what I'm about right now. And gaining puzzle pieces from everybody. That's where you're going to get the information. You get all the information from all the people. You're not going to get it from anywhere else, right? That's where you get the information from. What a handful. What a pile of things to witness. Unbelievable. It's kudos to you to keep on going out there and intently looking to get into these things. I'll tell you what, sometimes, especially if you're familiar with what Dave reports on, sometimes you got to wonder how many times you tempt your fate, right? I mean, I'll admit it, I do it all the time, but this is what I do, and there's no way out of it. So I'm going with it, but something happens. But so far, so good, right? What an amazing share that was. I absolutely appreciate you sending that in and sharing it with the world through this channel. And if you want to share any more, go ahead, and it's never too long, all right? So hopefully I read that somewhat smooth, you guys, but I've got absolute nothing but reflections in my phone from over my shoulder, and it was kind of hard to read. There's a few auto spell corrections in there that weren't done, so. But anyway, I think I'll leave that one at that. I got things to do. I'm going to get home and keep this ball rolling. There's so much to do. I'm always doing something. It's just always things to do. But every chance I get out here in the real world and show you guys a slice of it, and help get as many voices heard as I can, because it is endless. It's absolutely endless. It's a steady stream of honest people coming forward. How amazing is that? Okay, hopefully I got enough juice in this thing for one more. I'm gonna try it. It's looking slim though. Hello, Steve. Just want to say how much I admire and appreciate what you're doing. You're a fearless crusader, and I think you're doing a great job. Please persist as long as you're able, brother. Thanks for your encouraging words, man. I'm on it. You're with me. I came across your Big Man channel by association. I'm not an avid big game hunter, but was curious about which caliber big game hunters use mostly. While comparing the ballistics of a 308, 300 Win Mag, 6.5 millimeter Creedmoor and such rounds. Although I've only hunted birds as an adult, I'm interested in and enjoy furthering my education in firearms. That's when I found how to hunt in the apps and videos. You have created an excellent thing here, not to mention the incredible backdrops, so thank you for doing it. One day I need to come get one of those big moose. I was pleasantly surprised when I saw the videos you made directly addressing the situation with the big man and his people. Just let me say this. Yes, we are being lied to. And not just about this, but about most everything. The powers that be, the ones who want total global control, are doing everything to suppress the people and keep them under their thumb. First, by using the internet and social media to control freedom and such, limit freedom of opinion, and then to suppress the natural spread of ideas. Second, by manipulating information to sell the lies through all the useful idiots in the mainstream media. And thirdly, by using the education system to create morons who are simple blind followers, not to mention their control of government stooges. There's clearly an agenda at work, obvious for those of us who can see it. Well, sadly, it seems to be working. They're turning the world into ignorant sheep to use as they please. But I am not one of them, and I'm fairly convinced that you aren't either. I've never disbelieved. I've always had a curious and open mind, although, like anyone who knows me will tell you, it is also an extremely skeptical and highly analytical mind. I'm also a lot like you in that I don't know anything until I know it for myself through my own experience, which I actively seek, and I'm not satisfied until I learn it for myself, usually the old-fashioned way. Yep, I've ran into the brick wall hundreds of times myself until I figured shit out on my own. That said, I want to share my experiences, not because I've repressed or hidden them. I know what I know. I'm doing this because the vast majority of people I know can't even talk about it openly and honestly. So I simply don't have anyone else to talk to. And I hope that by others hearing what I have to say, it'll help them deal with this denying, ridiculing, condescending attitude from others, which, believe me, I've experienced my whole life. I get reactions ranging from anger from those who can't even accept the idea that maybe man is not the biblically superior being on earth, to those who say, I thought that was proven to be a hoax, or I thought that was in California. Obviously showing their ignorance, but most people just look at me like I've lost my mind. Of course I care less what they think. I don't need their approval in my life. Most of my friends tolerate it as yet another one of my weird idiosyncrasies, of which I admittedly have few. I only have a handful of close friends who talk about the big man, and I hope you can expand that group a little if you think this message is useful. Here's my background on the subject. When I was a teenager, I lived on a property that bordered the river bottom of the Satilla River in South Georgia, and I spent a huge amount of my time exploring that on foot and on my bicycle and motorcycle. During normal summer rainfall periods, the Satilla is a small meandering blackwater river with white sugar sand sandbars that is typical of the coastal plain. Full of fish, but also snapping turtles, water moccasins, and gators, so you have to be careful where you walked. The river bottom was about 2 miles wide, could be completely flooded a few feet deep with heavy rains during the winter. While down in there by myself, there were times when I absolutely, definitely felt I was being watched. You know what I mean. The hair stands up in your neck and you get a chill down your spine. I was usually out there during the weekdays in the summer when everyone older was at work, but I was still wary of bad guys hanging around. For example, once after the floodwaters had receded and I was exploring the bottom, I shot off my motorcycle and instantly felt like I was being stared at. I froze in place. I slowly looked around. Imagine my relief when I saw about a dozen owls gathered around a large puddle eating dead fish. Owls? Scavenging dead fish. Crazy. But of course, they were all staring right at me. I was completely creeped out. I hadn't seen them when I came up. They were off in the woods to my left about 25 yards. But I interrupted their lunch, and they were staring holes right through me like only owls can. Well, that's just a preliminary example of the sixth sense of being watched where I clearly saw the perpetrators. Well, that's just a preliminary example of the sixth sense of being watched where I clearly saw the perpetrators. There were numerous other times where I either saw nothing or I saw a dark, shadowy figure moving in the brush, usually silently. We had black bears, but they were very rare and sort of migratory, and you hardly ever saw one. But if you did, they weren't silent. You knew they were there. Needless to say, I was usually terrified of these beings at first, but I grew to accept that there was something there that probably didn't want to hurt me, and hopefully I could get away on my motorcycle, right? However, in one experience, I knew I was being watched, and I was thinking, what will I do if it's a bear? Just then, with that question in mind, I thought I knew the direction. I looked that way and yelled, "Hey, what are you doing?" Well, there was suddenly a very loud bark, and something black and hairy started shaking saplings and breaking limbs and moving towards me. I got the hell out of there. I couldn't see it clearly and didn't stick around to. But later it occurred to me that the palmettos, wax myrtle, and huckleberries in that area were mostly about chest high to a southern black bear and wouldn't have been taller than that unless he was standing up waving his arms. Maybe, but probably not at that time. The next experience as a teenager is really what sets the strange for most of my recent experience. There were several times in the twilight and early evening when I would hear long, drawn-out screams or howls coming from the river bottom, almost like a crying moan or wail. Of course, I knew at the time it could be a big man, but at 15 I had no direct proof, only my recent experiences in the woods. When I asked the adults, they all laughed at me, blew it off, and said I was just a lost cow in the woods or something like that. But I'd spent enough time out there and around cattle to know it wasn't any animal I knew, and I knew firsthand. And granted, a bull vocalizing is powerful and loud too, but I know what that sounds like, and they usually quit around dark. After this, I asked one of my older close relatives, a man who worked for years in the woods as a teenager and young adult in the 20s, digging up fat lighter stumps and selling them to chemical plant. He would go into the area around the Okefenokee Swamp, where longleaf pine logging had gone on back in the 1800s, and there were huge stumps everywhere. He would go there by himself with a mule and wagon and spend all day digging and loading stumps. He was one of the most down-to-earth, honest, and well-respected people I've ever known. When I asked him about the screams, he said, very matter-of-factly, "Yeah, that's the Bigfoot. They're all over these woods around here." Well, my confirmation was at hand. All the others lost a good bit of my respect at that point. Just as another example of sounds from the woods and being lied to, we had panthers too, the Florida panther. One was screaming in the woods behind her house for several nights one early summer, and eventually I saw it in the middle of the day in a hayfield next door. At first glance, I thought it was my uncle's bloodhound, but it didn't make sense that he'd be sitting in the field by himself a half mile from the home. So I was just about to call him, then the cat stood up and started moving. I saw the long tail and knew it wasn't a dog. It had cubs in the woods next door. That's where it was going. I later found a large hollow laurel oak tree that had fallen with obvious signs of a den. And here's the being lied to part. The wildlife biologists and other experts will tell you that there is no such thing as a black panther. Well, I know they're idiots because the Florida panther I saw in broad daylight was black. Okay, it may have been dark brown or dirty blonde and spotted up close, but from a distance it was black. More recent experience and knowledge can be summed up as this. I know they're everywhere, all around us, watching, and I'm convinced this is to keep tabs on us. So I try a little bit to keep tabs on them too. I think they are extremely wary of us, know we have guns, and have watched us kill everything, including our own kind. But still, they are also curious as to the way we live, and as a result, they are just out of sight watching. Their knowledge and ability in the woods is unsurpassed. We can't touch it. Due to this, we usually don't see them. We normally can't see them, even if we try. By the way, a note to the trail cam idiots, a sophisticated predator that has highly developed night vision can see the infrared light emitted by your trail cam. You morons, so quit it, okay? Even though we didn't normally see them, there are the odd chance encounters like the one you had against the evening sky, and the one planned and baited encounter of the Patty film. As a result of this situation, and because of my experience as a kid, I simply like to just go outside and listen for them at night. That way I can know if they are there. And I can say just about everywhere I've been, other than in the middle of the big cities where you can't hear anything, I've heard the screams. A few years ago, I went to eastern Oklahoma, Ouachita Mountains. to visit one of the ape researchers who was doing his very limited best to videotape them and prove they were an undiscovered North American ape. He absolutely hated and denied the DNA results that Mr. Plattis and Dr. Ketchum had produced. Well, anyway, he had been leaving an audio recorder out and had gotten a lot of really good screaming and such, and I was intrigued by that. During the visit, I had the experience of hearing rock clacking down toward a creek near the camp in the middle of the day, like two big rocks being knocked together repeatedly. Not a natural occurring sound, and there were not really any other people around either. One of the other guys in our group said that it was the big guys using rocks to break clams from the creek bed. He later showed me some broken clamshells on top of the big rock. It was obvious that's what I heard. Pretty amazing, I thought. Evidence of how they sustain themselves, and it's just like us. Now what I do these days to keep tabs on them is put out a high-quality stereo microphone, sometimes with a parabolic dish to focus on an area, with a digital recorder at maximum resolution. I can get about 7 hours a night with the SD card, and that's enough to deal with. I use a spectroscope program to see the recording, so it's easier to go through. I had gotten away from the listening for a few years as I lived in the big city. We were busy building a house, and I was making the transition to retirement, but I had a very recent experience that kicked it off again. Our new house is in a rural area just beyond the suburban areas, about 50 miles south of Atlanta, Georgia. Unfortunately, the area is becoming more populated every day, but we still have a lot of fields around, mostly for cattle and hay. And there are extensive creek beds and such all between these. I just assumed the big mound was all around, but I hadn't really paid attention. My house is in a subdivision with 1 to 2 acre lots, and the farm pond and the associated creek is on the western side of the development. Recently, I was outside with my dog for his last pee of the evening when I heard crazy loud screaming from the direction of the creek. In that direction, there's another little farm pond on the creek and a small cabin where the local kids will party, and immediately thought that was what was going on. You know, like when someone's having a Super Bowl party outside and everyone screams at once for the touchdown. But it was mid-January, not quite Super Bowl, and a little cold for the outside party. Then the coyotes started yelping and cackling with their cackling yelps, and that's when I knew who it was. I ran to that side of the house to get a more clear listen, but it had died out by the time I got there. That prompted me to dig out my recording equipment, and over the next couple of weeks I worked on finding the best place for it. All the sound of people and houses can drown out a recording, but on this first few nights with the dish on my front porch pointed toward the creek, I got distant screams, and they were clearly moving around the area. On about the third or fourth night, they were back close by. That's the audio I have attached. It's clear that the big guys and girls start the party, and that prompts the coyotes to finish it off. I've gotten this signature screaming party over and over, all around. It's a moving party. The other thing I have discovered is that there seems to be at least one individual that stays around close to this area. I've begun to recognize his voice, or signature howl, in several of the recordings. He sort of has a little grunting bark before the howl, like he's kicking it up. I was hearing a lot of tree breaks and knocks and such, and loud bangs against the sheet metal that sounded like rocks being thrown at the structures, so I was focusing on trying to pick up the perpetrator. Well, I think I got his attention because there was one episode where there was a very close set of screams, and it sounds like he is frustrated by the presence of my equipment. The stuff was on my front porch, but there are no chairs or anything else there yet, so the 22-inch parabolic microphone on the tripod probably got his attention, since it was different. I included that clip as well. I've pretty much been able to record them somewhere around here every time I put the microphone out, just in my backyard. It is clear that they move around in an area of a few square miles, judging by the apparent distance to the howls, and it's clear that they are pretty good mimicking of dogs, owls, roosters, and cows, too. I record those in the middle of the night that are just a little off from normal, maybe more powerful, different audio spectrum or range, and not as consistently matching the real thing. I know this has been a long message, so please forgive me for that, and as usual, I have a lot to say. If you don't read it for the others, I'll understand, but if you do choose to share it, thank you very much for your time. You're free to share this audio however you see fit. I hope to get out there someday to see you and go on a moose hunt or something, or at least go fishing. And again, many, many thanks for what you're doing. Keep it up. Take care. Brad in Georgia. All right, Brad, that was a long one, right when I was like hoping to God my batteries weren't going to die. I didn't know it was that loud, but it looks like we made it. I was reading kind of panicky there and thinking, oh no, this is a long one. It's going to shut off, but I think I made it. So that was a good thing. And you've obviously witnessed a lot of stuff. I'll attach those. I haven't even listened to the audio recordings myself. My phone won't open them up in the email, so I have to go to a different computer, crack open that, find that email, crack it open, save the recordings, transfer it over to a memory card, and then take it to the big computer, which is never attached to the internet, and edit it up into this video. So I will do that as soon as I can. And in the meantime, I got to get out of here. Thank you so much for sending that in, and be sure to share more. All of you, everybody just keep sharing here, man. It gets shared word for word, and it is up to every single one of you to find that missing piece to your puzzle, and every single one of you to go with your instincts and your gut and figure out if there is anything in an email that can help you or not. So just take from it what you will or leave it. That's all there is to it. I am not the man to judge who gets to speak or not, or what gets to be shared or not. I'm not the guy, and I don't think there is anybody available who is qualified to dictate what you get to hear or not, except for you.